I gotta ask you about Taylor Swift.
Oh
Uh,
my God. Oh my God.
hi,
One of my favorite subjects. Hi,
this.
Steve.
Hi, Walter. I feel like I'm speaking to video gaming royalty. So thank you so much.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the time, Walter. Honestly, this is it's a joy to speak with you. And Arcades and Love Songs, the Ballad of Walter Day, of course, is absolutely wonderful. It is such a wonderful film.
Wow. Thank you.
I would love, like, I mean, obviously. For those of us that don't know you personally, we're familiar with you from either the gaming community or even from King of Kong. What was your reaction though when Ed or the team approached you about a film really about you?
Well, the genesis of this is 1985. I have a glamorous girlfriend, and one night she calls up and says, Walter, I secretly have been seeing a friend of yours, and I have to be free to be with him. And she did eventually fall in love with him and have a child with him. But me, I was heartbroken. And a couple of weeks into the heartbreak, I started like hearing music play in my body. It was like I was channeling a radio station, music, songs, to me, absolutely beautiful with lyrics and hooks and melodies and harmonies and harmonics. And I was completely fixated on it and blown away by it. And I started writing the songs down in a notebook and started singing the songs in a tape recorder. And I was so transfixed by it that I vowed that even though I was not a singer and ever expected to be a singer, ever planned to be a singer, I was going to get up on the stage and someday I was going to sing and perform those songs in public. So that became my vow. And became such a fiery desire that I carried that with me for years, but I never was able to bring it to fruition because of all sorts of psychological obstacles or money obstacles or responsibilities and stuff like that. Until suddenly, 20 years later, the King of Kong comes up in 2005, and Ed and the producers of the King of Kong were intrigued by my music because they talked about how I wanted to leave the video game industry and do my music, and that was my heart's desire. So they filmed me in the King of Kong, playing some of my songs on an acoustic guitar and singing, and they were intrigued. And they later told me that of all the people in the King of Kong, my story was the one that intrigued them the most. And so that's the King of Kong. 20 years, almost 20 years after that, I'm at a Pomona, California video game event, and a couple of people come out of the crowd. And it's David Reichelt, who made the famous mobile game called Color Switch. And he says to me, I recognize you from the King of Kong. Whatever happened to that music you talked about? And I explained that my dream was still alive, but that the obstacles of life and things just stopped it from happening, but I still hoped that I could still manage to have it happen. And he said, well, we have the money. We want to pay for your album and pay all expenses as a gift with no strings attached. So suddenly I find myself in a music studio actually recording my music, a 10-song CD. Meanwhile, the producers of The King of Kong from 20 years earlier, they hear about this and they say, oh my God, he's actually doing his album after all these years. And they thought, what a great story. We have to do the story of a man who, at the end of his years, never gave up his dream, kept his vision, kept his hopes and his attention alive. And suddenly, at the end of his years, he's doing his album. And they wanted to make a movie that proved that it's never too late.
I love that. I love that, and I hear like this idea of it never being too late. I think is such a beautiful thing because it's just hearing your story there. It seems like there were constant obstacles to like, well, I've got this music and someday someone will hear it and but I want it to, but you can't, but you keep getting delayed and yet here we are with this film and you have the opportunity to share those with the public. And I think that's such an incredible thing. Um, I I would love to talk to you about the music here. I mean, you talked about this woman who has broken your heart and inspires these beautiful songs. And we meet her in this film. And Can you talk about that? Because not only are you interacting with her, you're performing them in front of her,
Well,
with her knowing.
what happened is when we broke up and the music started, she never knew about the music. I never told her. It was my own personal path, and I kept it to my secret. I talked about other people, never to her. In fact, even though we're in the same small town, we would run into each other maybe once every 4 or 5 years and just hi, how are you, and anything like that. So we never interacted. So we were out of each other's lives, and she went on to have, a couple more kids and be married to someone, and so she had her own life. And but we were friends. We didn't break up with anger. I was never angry with him. I felt actually appreciative of the fact, believe it or not, that this guy, he had actually, uh, she, it was clear that she wasn't fulfilled being with me and that she was willing to be with someone else. So I accepted that for what it was and actually kind of thanked the guy for just saving me from getting really involved and getting married and getting a child. And then she leaves me because she wasn't fulfilled with me. So she wasn't fulfilled with me. So she left me. So I was thankful that it happened when it did happen. And no anger came up, just some thankfulness that it just worked out that way. And so then I called her when the movie was going to happen, and I told her, you were my muse. You had inspired 138 songs, and she was completely blindsided and floored by it because she had never known all those years that that I had been that she didn't know all those years that I'd been talking about some unnamed woman who broke my heart that inspired the music, but never once did I ever say who it was because I didn't want to put her on the spot or hurt her reputation or make her feel bad. So I just kept the name completely secret. No one ever knew. But when Ed started making the music, making the movie, he and Seth Gordon, who did The King of Kong with him, who were like collaborators on this new film, uh, they both agreed that it's real important that Shane should be brought into the movie. And when Shane got brought into the movie, it changed the whole dimensions of the movie and made it far more heartfelt. Because my experience now from seeing the film numerous times in public, the public loves Shane and they appreciate the fact that she owns up to what she did and she's completely vulnerable and completely exposed and naked and completely owning up to it and completely embracing it all and embracing me. And she has such dignity and poise that the public really likes her and do not consider her like a bad person or anything like that.
No, she's not a villain in this film. Um, she's more of a what if you will. Um, she sort of addresses that at the end of the film, but you're right. There's such depth of meaning. But am I hearing you right? She knew you were making music. She just didn't know that they were about her.
Oh no, she didn't even know I was making music.
Oh, she didn't know you were making music either. Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure I'm right. I don't think that she ever knew I was making music.
Hmm. Well, honestly, it's such a beautiful moment to see you stand up on stage and be able to perform. Um, I want to ask what that was like, but before I do, I gotta ask you about Taylor Swift.
Oh
Uh,
my God. Oh my
I,
God. One of my favorite subjects. So let me tell you what happened to Taylor Swift because I think it's an interesting story. First of all, my performance on the stage is February 17th, 2023. 30 days later, on March 17th, 2023, that's when the Eras tour started. So we were talking about Taylor Swift on the stage before the huge phenomenon of the Eras tour even started. Uh, so essentially, there's a phone in the background. I'll ignore that though. So essentially, um, when I talked about Taylor Swift, um, I had only recently discovered her right before I got that performance on the stage, and I uh, I I had wanted to learn more about what other people were doing in the outside world there. And so I started doing research to find out what other songwriters were writing. And I discovered Taylor Swift. And I started hearing her songs and seeing her lyrics. And I thought, my God, this is really good songwriting. So I did a little more research and heard more songs. And I came to the conclusion that she's got to be as good as anybody's ever been. And so that's when I got up on the stage. She was brand new to me. And And I knew of her existence, but I didn't know anything about her music. And that's why I got up on the stage and I said in this sort of almost like gushing in astonishment, "Are you aware how good she is?" And everybody laughs because they're so used to 14-year-old girls gushing over Taylor Swift. And here's this 73-year-old man who's kind of in awe of her as a fellow songwriter. So with great humor, I love how the audiences react to that because they roar with laughter. So Taylor Swift, in my estimation, is up there with the Beatles. I consider her that good because her songwriting is so remarkable.
And we see in this film too that it looks like she's influencing you as a performer. You're studying her mannerisms and whatnot when you're upstage. Did that help your performance?
Oh, I don't know if I did or not because when I was up there on the stage, I was in a zone, and I don't think I was saying, "Oh, Taylor Swift does this or does that." I remember saying that I'm studying her mannerisms because I knew that I couldn't stand her like a stick figure. So essentially, I wanted to see what she would do, and I don't think I adopted anything from her. But when I was getting ready to go on the stage, I remember feeling completely calm and relaxed because I had been in front of crowds before and never get nervous. And I bragged to someone at that moment that, "Ha, I'm not nervous at all. This is a cakewalk." But suddenly, moments later on the stage, I announced that, "Oh, I was bragging about being not nervous, but suddenly I'm trembling. I'm really nervous because I was completely out of my comfort zone. I was completely in deep water over my head, completely naked and vulnerable and exposed because this is brand new. Because we're talking about someone who would have died 1,000 deaths at any earlier stage of their life if they had to get up in front of people and sing. And here I was, foisting this stuff, foisting this experience on myself because my desire and my destiny for performing the music was so strong and so much fire behind it that I simply had to do it. And I was mainly afraid that I was going to forget the lyrics because, I mean, Taylor Swift remembers all the lyrics just like that to over 200 songs. But then again, who knows what her story is? She's so brilliant.
She also performs about 200 shows a year, some like
Yeah,
crazy number.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So essentially, that was the dynamic, and I sang three songs, and the third one was "Hold Me," and then I sang that a second time as an encore. And when I sang that second one, when I sang it the second time, my voice was very different. It was more relaxed and smooth and sweeter. Somehow, in the process of performing, I had settled down into a groove that was more relaxed and stronger and more confident. And everybody and someone even noted that my voice had been different. They say it in the film there. So so it was an interesting thing. But the bottom line from this movie to me is they keep using the word inspirational. And I guess that really is what it is because I'm 75. There are a lot of 75-year-olds. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. You can have your dreams realized. You can have your visions come to fruition. You can actually make things happen. Life isn't over when you're older, and that's why the main theme of the movie is it's never too late.
I love that. I love that, Walter. I truly do. And there's something that you said in the film that I really struck me as well. I wanted to ask you about it. It's by uplifting other people, I uplift myself.
Karma.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I thought that was so beautiful.
Everything you do comes back to you. Everything you do comes back to you. If you heal, uh, so many spiritual scriptures talk about that. If you heal the world, you heal yourself. You heal yourself, you heal the world. Everything's connected. So I live in a town of 10,000 people, and over 4,000 of them practice transcendental meditation. So every day I sit down for 20 minutes in the morning, then later in the day, 20 minutes in the evening, and I do this ancient technique that's incredibly easy to learn, incredibly easy to do. And it turns out that the scientists have learned that the hemispheres of your brain coordinate. And that means increased intelligence, increased in creativity. And also it affects your heart and your emotions. So kindness and sincerity and consideration of other people grows too, actualizing the personality. It turns out that I live in a community that is very, very, very much connected to the process of expanding consciousness. and just unfolding full mental potential. And as a side effect of all that, we begin to see how the forces of nature really support people who do good for other people. If you do good for other people and support other people and nourish other people, it all comes back to you. As you sow, so shall you reap. So karma's real. Karma's got a lot of just karma works. It happens. Everything you do to everybody else comes back to you. That's why I'm so appalled at the way people behave on the internet. Don't they know that everything they're doing to everybody else will find its way back to them?
I love that. I love that, and I appreciate that. There's a like this idea of genuine respect and care
Yeah.
is a game changer, although it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be the thing that we are learning. Um, but I think that's such a beautiful truth that you're reaching, that you're connecting with. Um, I know we're starting to run out of time, Walter. But I thought, first of all, I wanted to ask you, with your love of Taylor, what era is Walter Day in?
Well, I likened it. That's a good question. Do you know much about her music?
I know. Oh, well, I've seen her concert. I saw the concert in theater, and I've followed her off and on. Over the years, but don't quiz me.
Did you actually go to one of her concerts?
And just on screen. I
Okay.
went to see it
Well,
on when it was in theaters.
so I went to her concert in SoFi Stadium.
Wow. Okay.
In fact, the producers of the movie Arcades and Love Songs were so into this that they actually went with me and filmed me in the car talking about, film me on the sidewalk walking through the crowds, film me going through the crowds, film me going up and swiping my card and going in. And so they actually have it as a special they can put in the DVD, the CD or the DVD, whatever it is, about Walter's trip to the tables. Anyway, here's my here's my perspective on the Taylor Swift concert. It's not like any other concert in history because the people are more psychologically and emotionally involved in her with her probably than anybody in history. It was a level of joy, camaraderie, unity, companionship, fellowship that it stopped being a concert. It almost became like a spiritual experience for 70,000 people. And all 70,000 people were so completely psychologically and emotionally engaged with her that they all stood on their feet for 3.5 hours singing every word to every song. It's not like an average concert. It's completely unique. It's a phenomenon that's why Time Magazine chose her as the person of the year because the level of joy that she was causing wherever she went was unbelievable. It's completely unique.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I didn't go in person like you did, but just in the theater, I was fascinating. I said I was like a stranger in a strange land because you seeing people and they're doing the dances and all that. It's pretty remarkable.
Well, here's what Matthew Stafford, the LA quarterback, the quarterback for the Rams, he said, I've been to a lot of stadiums. I've played in a lot of stadiums, but I've never heard anything as loud as this.
Mm.
When they started cheering, not the music, but the cheering, when the cheering started, it was the loudest sound I ever heard in my life. 116 decibels.
Wow, wow, unbelievable. But honestly, Walter, it is such a joy to speak to you. I wish, it's. I know we have to wrap, but honestly, Arcades and Love Songs, The Ballad of Walter Day is such a special piece, and it's such a joy to chat with you. Thank you so much for the time. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You have a great day too. Thank you.